like my homemade garment to look as professional as possible, don't you? Understitching can make the difference. It's an easy skill. It's just stitching a close line to the edge of the facing to prevent the facing from rolling towards the outside. And there are no stitches showing on the outside. Bye bye top stitching! In this video, I'll show you how I used understitching for the bodice of a little dress I'm going to make for my daughter. After you've sewn the front and the back pieces together at the shoulders and you attach the lining and the main fabric on the center back, you can start with the neckline. To sew the neckline, match the shoulders of the main fabric and the lining, right sides together, and sew from one end of the neckline all the way to the other end at a regular seam allowance with a straight stitch. Now it's time to trim the seam allowance. Your fold will lie more flat if you grade your seams. This means you trim one seam allowance edge narrower than the other. Trim the seam allowance of the facing more narrow. The seam allowance of the main fabric has to be a little wider. Especially with heavyweight fabrics, I advise you to do this. And on curved seams like this one, always clip your seam allowance. Once you've clipped and trimmed the seam allowance, you can press the facing away from the garment along with the trimmed seam allowance and pin the seam allowance to the facing on the right side of the fabric. To start stitching, lay the sewn piece out flat, right side up. The seam allowance should be lying underneath the lining. Put this part under your machine's presser foot, edge stitch at approximately 1/8 inch from one end to the other with a straight stitch. This is the understitching. Try to stay as close as possible to the main seam. An edge joining presser foot is a great help for this job. Just snap this foot on the presser foot holder of your machine and put your needle in the left position. If not, you will stitch in the ditch. Fold the main fabric and the lining pieces back together along the seam line, wrong sides facing, and press for a sharp edge. You can see the stitching on the inside and nothing but a sharp edge on the outside. That's it. I'm Anne from MadamSew.com, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment or send me an email. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel by clicking the button here or here. And I wish you a very pleasant day. Bye.